Guys, welcome back to the channel. I know I haven't made a video in a while, so my apologies. I've been a little busy moving into this new place here and getting set up. So now that that's done, I hope to get back to making videos. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about van life and why I think everyone should spend a little bit of time living in a van. So for me, I was 28 when I moved into a van, and I was living actually a pretty high-end life in Vancouver, BC. I had a nice penthouse there overlooking English Bay, and it was pretty fancy lifestyle. I was spending a lot of money and also working a lot to afford that. And I actually broke my neck and came very close to being paralyzed. And it was pretty much a miracle that I walked away. All of the doctors and nurses and everyone, the surgeon, they all told me that they just couldn't believe that I was walking and that I wasn't paralyzed from my injuries. So when that happened, I really didn't want to take it for granted. So I decided that, I shouldn't just be putting off all my dreams to later in life and kind of banking on retirement. So I decided to sell a lot of my stuff. Well, actually, at first, I decided just to live a little bit. So I'd been working pretty solid for 10 years, and I decided that I would go and take up rock climbing in Thailand. So that's how it all started. And I actually fell in love with just being outside, being on the rock, being in nature, and learning to test my skills with climbing and all of that. So I really got into that. And then when I came back to British Columbia for a wedding and to do a little job for my folks, then I decided to buy a van just so that I could live in the van for the summer. And I ended up really liking van life. It really forced me to live simply, and I had to decide what was really important, what I really needed in my life. So I downsized, and what I ended up doing is I ended up subletting the apartment I had in Vancouver, and ended up making some money off of that. So that was putting money in my pocket. And then I just downsized and simplified my life and moved into my van. So I basically brought my computer, my camera, and climbing gear. That was about it. A few clothes, and then I just took off on an adventure. And I didn't really plan for it. In the beginning, I thought I would just be in the van for maybe 2 months, but I ended up really liking it. And that turned into living in this van for about a year and a half. So I had a Westphalia camper van. I don't know if I would recommend those vans. They're great in some regards, but I was traveling down in the US, and the parts just aren't readily available. So I ended up having all kinds of engine troubles in the US and when I was down in Mexico, and it actually became pretty hard to get the parts. So I actually got stuck in a few places down there. It's quite a wild story that I might tell later on, but for now I'll just kind of simplify my thoughts on van life and really why I just think it's great for everyone. You learn to simplify your life, decide what's important, and you learn to live very simply. So you learn to cook simple, you learn to live within your means, you spend very little, and you also learn a lot about yourself because it's not always easy. So you're learning a lot about how you deal with issues and problems that come up and how you deal with hardship. And in my case, you also are dealing a lot with solitude because you're on the road and you don't necessarily always know people. So I guess it depends on your personal situation. But for me, I was traveling around. So you're always in a new area, you're meeting new people, you're not necessarily a resident of the country you're traveling in, and all of that can add challenges as well. But it's all very exciting. You're learning a new culture, and you're learning how to just be in this new reality. And to me, it was just so liberating. As soon as you got sick of a place, you could just pack up and take off to the next area. And I didn't really have a plan, so that was also a very freeing feeling where you could just pick up and decide where you were going to go and then move along and go to a new area. And because I was climbing, I also had that benefit of meeting people that were in the climbing community. So I was kind of going to climbing areas that were pretty popular, and there I would meet people and kind of get some inside scoop as to where to camp for free, where to find showers. So I was often showering in community centers. So you go get a day pass or whatever, and then you can go get a shower and clean up a little bit and use the pools and the hot tub and all of that. So it was just a great all around experience meeting people down in the US. I was younger when I did that, and I had formulated a bit of an opinion about Americans that was I was really just totally being prejudiced, and it was what the media was feeding us at the time down here. It was during the Bush administration, and when I went down there, I found that Americans were very different than what I was being told, and a lot of Canadians were kind of bad mouthing Americans. And when I went down there, I found it to be quite opposite than what I was being told. Everyone I met was just absolutely amazing and friendly and helpful. And I didn't have a single bad experience down there, really. I had some very trying experiences, but never did I have anything really bad happen. I was never robbed, or people were always friendly and helpful and all that. So that was great. And it teaches you a lot about living simply and cooking simple, because it's hard to cook elaborate meals. So you do learn to just eat really simple. You're often just frying up a steak or making a bit of soup, eating maybe a little bit of a salad. So it teaches you a lot about living simply and living in the present moment, especially if you're doing something like climbing or surfing or taking up your passion, maybe you're a filmmaker or something like that. But I just think it's an all-around great experience for everyone, especially if you're in your 20s, just to take that time and to just learn to be free, be away from the day job, be away from a boss, and be away from your community, your friend group, whatever, because you really, in that solitude and in that adventure, you learn a lot about yourself. And I think it's a very valuable lesson. And it also teaches you a lot about just being able to minimize your expenses and to see that really happiness is separate from all of your material stuff. It was some of the happiest years I've had in my life. And it was when I had thrown all of my stuff into boxes, and I just no longer felt tied to all of that. I didn't feel tied to my friend group, or this like over the years your friends develop a concept of who you are and all of that. So sometimes that can be hard to free yourself of. And when you just take off in a van and you go to new areas, you can really just be whoever you want. You can be a new person. You can just really decide who you want to be, how you want to be in the world, and you learn a ton about yourself. So those are some of the main things that I loved about van life. And it also helped me appreciate having space when I came back. By the end of the year and a half, I was sure ready to get back into a space and have a little more room. And then you don't take it for granted. And since then, I've really kept my life quite simple. I've never really been that attached to material stuff. I don't have a bunch of toys, and I often just keep things really simple, keep my stuff to a minimum, and that is the best way to live that I've found, because the more stuff I accumulate, I find that it just really owns me. I don't own my stuff. So that's what I found, and now I appreciate having any kind of space, and that's really been a benefit as well. So I think all of us can learn a little bit from van life, and it's my advice that everyone should just buy a van and go live in a van, even if it's just for a few months one summer, or traveling around in another country. Buy a van, do your traveling, and then at the end you can sell the van and pretty much break even if you're lucky, or even make a bit of money. That's what happened in my case. I actually ended up selling the van for more money years later. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm sure a lot of you have lived in a van or are thinking about it. So let me know down below. Have you guys been a dirtbag before? Have you lived in a van? Have you traveled around that way? And kind of what were your thoughts and experiences about that? And I hope you guys are well, and I'll see you guys in the next video.